I'm Day First. It is great to be joined by longtime medical director for IndyCar and IMS, Dr. Geoffrey Billows, Deputy Medical Director, Dr. Julia Vaizer as well. And it was announced not too long ago that after a long period of time, you decided to retire, handing the reins over to Dr. Vaizer beginning in 2023. Let's back up though, before all of that. Explain what you guys do. Very much first responders to an incident out on the racetrack.
That's correct. So when we travel with the NTT IndyCar series, and even here, we have a physician on the track surface in a medical response car. And if there's a crash, then the safety team goes out and the medical response car goes out, and we're among the first people who evaluate the driver when they're still in the car, and kind of help determine what resources we might need, whether they can get themselves out of the car or if they need to be extricated. And it helps us to think about the future. If they are injured, what specialists are we going to need to call, which hospitals are we going to need to call, and the resources that we're going to need to get them rehabilitated and back in the car.
NTT's deals a lot with data, obviously. It is hugely important in what you do out on the racetrack. Can you explain that a little bit?
So one of the things that we do as part of motorsports medicine is making sure that we learn from every incident, and we make sure that we grow with industry and make cars safer for the drivers. So every incident gets analyzed, and there's several points of data collection that are stashed all around the car and on the driver themselves. Some of them are particularly pertinent to us in the moment. One of the things that we look very closely at is amount of G-forces that the drivers feel during the impact. And they wear the accelerometers in their ears, basically as close as we can get to their brain, and we analyze that data to help us make decisions about what kind of level of impact did the driver sustain. So that's relevant for us, especially if we're in the middle of the weekend and we're hoping to get the driver back out there safely. We want to make sure that we look at all those things before we make that decision.
Take us back some 30 years. You were a volunteer at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Right. I first came out here during my residency, and I just kind of volunteered to help out here, and I worked here in the infield care center, and I saw these guys going out on the track. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do this someday. So I did get hired to be one of the track surface physicians, and I did that for a number of years, and then became the medical director for the Speedway and the IndyCar series.
You two met a couple years ago. Detroit, was it?
That's right. So I was an intern in residency. I knew motorsports medicine was going to be my future. I did not know how yet, but I knew I was going to make it happen. And I was very passionate about it, and I was dreaming of starting a motorsports medicine fellowship one day. This was my goal, and I was introduced to Dr. Billows. We had a 30-second interaction, I think. I just introduced myself, and I said, I dream of starting motorsports medicine fellowship. Dr. Billows said, me too. I'm actually working on that already.
And I got to tell you, I also vividly remember that first meeting, and when I first met her, just for a few seconds, and went back to trail. I'm like, oh my God, that intern has got more energy than anybody I've ever seen in my life.
It's still the case, by the way. And here you are now, about to be the IndyCar and IMS medical director at the end of the year here.
Yeah, this is very exciting. I'm very honored to be chosen for this opportunity, we will carry on Dr. Billows' legacy in making sure that we continue providing excellent care to our fans, to our guests, to our drivers, and everybody who works with our series.
Well, when it comes to the drivers, you told them at Toronto this year that you're going to be retiring. Somewhat well documented salivary cancer. You've yes. had to deal with a lot here in the last couple of years.
I have. The last 20 months or so have been a little challenging. I have parotid salivary carcinoma. I had head and neck surgery in late November of 2020. After a lot of really thoughtful consideration and discussions with my wife and my family, I decided that I'll retire after at the end of this season.
When you told the drivers that you were going to retire, the ovation that you got was as warm as I think I've ever seen in motorsports.
It was very touching.
Yeah, that's special. You got big shoes to fill here.
I sure do. But I have been trained by the best, and I have been set up for success.
Leaving a legacy. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Dr. Geoffrey Billows, Dr. Julia Vaizer, NTT Meet the Paddock.